Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's November 30th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And starting out looking at our daily chart, you can see we bounced off this midline, these lows, and what a day here! Big rally today. Went right through the upper side, and notice where we found resistance right at the oversold uh, high end of the bands and right off the trend line there. So will we go on through the trend line tomorrow? We will have to see, but that's quite a rally today. So the rally came off of something. It looks like the FOMC. I can't remember who it was speaking. Powell spoke today. So something Powell said, obviously the market liked, and this thing rallied like crazy. So um, I think we still got a mixed bag on the economy. That doesn't mean anything. The market the market could still go higher even in a bad economy. If people are buying stocks, people are buying stocks. Maybe that's the only place they've got to put their money at the moment. So not sure what to expect here. Every time we've reached this point so far, we've turned down though and sold off pretty hardly thereafter. Will we do that again? I just don't know. This is a very similar rally to this last one, so we'll have to see. But right now, this market's rallying, and the only key is we're right at the key entry point. We're all the way back to oversold in one day, or I'm sorry, overbought. This is be overbought, oversold would be the other side. So we're definitely overbought again now after one day rally. And it was a pretty strong rally, so probably a lot of short covering in there. Um, People taking profits, people getting out before they, when you start bouncing, and probably new longs coming in thinking the market's going higher, and maybe it will. So we'll have to see. But it's at this point, if this trend line's still valid and still in play, then I would expect we'll turn down from here. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. Um, Still got 2 more days left in this week, so we may find something out here pretty quickly if we're going to push through here or not. But anyway, let's flip over to the 2000 tick intraday chart. We'll go through the trades and we'll wrap today up. Okay, here's a look at it. You can see we were trending downward earlier, had a break, moved to a new low, and this thing reversed out of there. And this was a really strong move here and up through here. By that time, it's obvious this is a really strong trend. You can see there's 2 tiers here. I would have still played the shorter term stuff just to get an idea where you needed to be. And this thing closed basically on its high up here. And we came up just a little bit short of getting a measured leg based on that previous leg there. But you can see we came up just a tad short up here from getting a measured move. Not a lot of trades today, but this was a really strong rally. I mean, actually, I take that back. I didn't mark these type trades because they're very advanced, but I'll just talk about it when we get to them. When you see these trends like this, when it's lots of little bars that are like dojis and they just keep going higher and higher and higher, and the corrections are very shallow, that is a super strong trend. So generally, when you get a good signal bar off of those trend lines, take them. And somebody asked me about this yesterday. I think they took a trade and they said that somewhere I said in these kind of little tight trends that to take any setup off of any entry off of the trend line, and that's not true. Any good signal bar off of the trend line. So, and he had a real bearish bar and went long above it. And of course, it maybe moved a tick or two and reversed on him and stopped him out. And he couldn't figure out why he lost. But you need to listen closely to what I'm saying. And unless you're an advanced trader, you shouldn't be trying to trade that anyway. That's a very advanced trade. That's for somebody that's very skilled at reading this chart. And obviously, you're not the person that asked me that. No knock to them, but they're just not at that point yet. They're still learning the basics and they're trying to trade advanced stuff. So trust me when I tell you, stick to the basics when you're new. If you would just do that, you would be better off. I say this all the time and people just ignore me. Make sure you hear this if you don't hear anything else I say. If you're new to trading and you're not a very skilled chart reader, stick to the basics. Second entries with a trend, entries off the key entry point in a downtrend, same thing in an uptrend. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Same thing in an uptrend, stick to the key entry points, and if it's a range, you buy the lows and sell the highs. And if you get a little range like this that's in a downtrend, then you probably only want to sell the highs. If you get a range like this in an uptrend, then you probably only want to buy the lows. Stick with the trend. Always stay with the trend. Don't counter trend trade. So people that are new are not good enough to trade reversals and try to pick bottoms and all the more advanced stuff that you need to be a very skilled chart reader to do. So just stay out of that stuff. Find you 2 or 3 sure things using the basics every day, and you'll make money at this. But if you try to, if you're, I'll say this again. What's your goal? Is your goal to make money, or is your goal to trade? If your goal is to trade and get thrilled out of trading, you're probably going to be a loser. If your goal is to make money, find 2 or 3 trades a day that are sure things and go with them, and don't trade anything else. You may have to sit there for hours, but if you do that, you will have success. And just like today, you really had to be patient today to find a trade. There weren't many good ones. So you had to be very, very patient. Or when I say that, early on. Because you see that the first red one I have marked, red or blue, is at 9 o'clock. And it's hard to sit there from 7 to 9 and not take a trade. There's maybe one other trade in here you could have taken, and I didn't mark it. Maybe there's 2 of them in here. But I didn't mark them. And I'll explain them when we get to them. So, but you need to pay attention to anything in the red lately, especially if it has to do with the FOMC, anything to do with unemployment or the economy, any kind of economic news right now that's red, that's U.S. based. I'd pay attention to it. And I'd probably sit tight and be flat. And we had one at 7 o'clock, 7:15, 7:30 this morning. So really, I wouldn't even try to trade until after that settled down. And here we are about 8, and we're bouncing and heading up. And you got this trend. You had this trend here working up, and you get a close outside. There's a good chance you might get a new high. So even though that's a second entry, you might take it. I didn't mark it because it doesn't really fit the rules, because it's the first close outside that channel working up. But it's still one you might take. So I'll mark it green. We run up and you run another 2 legs up, and you get another second entry here, same thing. You do get a close outside and a new high here. That's just really sideways congestion. It's just not an ideal trade. But it is a second entry. It does break higher and turn down. It's a little ways away from the EMA. You might trade it on an engulfing bar, but because of the congestion look there, I probably wouldn't. I'd wait for this to close and make sure it's really bearish, and notice how it bounces off the EMA and closes higher. I'd skip that trade. Again, it's one you might mark green, but I'd skip it. And then we break out the bottom, no chance to go long. We're just chopping along. I don't see anything else there. Then we just drop down and we're chopping along again. I don't see anything worth trading. We drop on down again, and we finally bounce, close outside, move to a new high. No setup there, but then you make one more push up, and right off the key entry point, you get a bearish bar. I like going short right there. Nice move down there. You can see the trend going down. Close outside, new low, and then we're just kind of chopping sideways again. This actually does trend up a little bit, but I'd still treat this like sideways action. And once again, we turn down off the trend line on a breakout there, or even just to pull back to the trend line. There's a second entry short there. This is a new low, first entry, second entry, but you can't trade that signal bar. But a few minutes later, you get this lower high, nice signal bar, go short there. And we still find support there. And this is basically the support of the range right along the on the daily chart. Let me flip over there and show you that. It's basically this area right across here. And you see what happened. We pushed a little lower, failed, and rocketed up. And again, that's this area right here on this chart. You see we broke lower, failed, and rocketed up. Unfortunately, there's no setup there to go long. This one was tempting, but we're in this downtrend, so I would only look to go long, maybe on a really good setup that failed, and you can see there's a little sideways congestion. That's not rejection there, so I don't think you want to go long there. This looks like rejection, but you don't get a setup for it, so not much you can do. And actually what we do is we spike up and go into a channel here. And again, I just don't see any entries there I like, and suddenly we fold over and boom, we're going lower. I like this one. I would not trade that on the engulfing because of the congestion. But when that closed that bearish, you could probably go short one tick below that, and you see what happens. You're looking for a retest of this low. That's been a long trend, fairly good channel. So you're going to get a retest. You're going to at least, you may not get a new low, but you're at least going to get an attempt at a retest for a new low. On a trend like that, you're going to get a retest attempt. Doesn't mean you'll get a successful one. You probably will, but sometimes you don't. And but you can see we ran to a new low. We tested it again, and then we bounced, and then it was all uphill from there. So at this point, it looks like we're just bouncing off those same lows until the news came out, and from the news on, it was pretty wacky. So, and that was right at 12:30. So I would be flat there. But anyway, I like that move. Turns out to be a pretty nice move. There's actually another little break higher and turns down. Again, I don't think I would trade that. I would want it to come back to the EMA. You might even say there's a failure right here. It turned higher again and failed. But it doesn't really set up like a failure. It is 3 attempts to go higher that fail. It's another one you might argue to be green, but it doesn't set up the way I would like it that I'd want to trade it and be able to mark it red. So, and of course we do find this low. Once we make a new low, we test it again. And let me zoom in here where we can see this a little bit better. It's a little hard to see there. But basically we got a new low across here, and we rally. You try to go short once, twice, and then 3 times. And I would draw this trend line right off those lows, and you can see we bounce there. If you draw it right off those closes there, and we bounce there, that's just a triple test regardless with a nice signal bar. It's also a first entry, second entry. It's a little congested, but with it being a second entry and a failed second entry, I'd probably take that. Now by the counts, this probably wouldn't show as a failure. Failed second entry right here. This is where I would count it, because this is a double bottom. Even though this is not equal, this is only one leg up. So first entry, second entry, there's where your failure occurred. Then you get the triple test right at the key entry point. Then you make the higher low. And so this one I would mark green because of the congestion. I still like that trade. I'd probably take it. It's right there, real close to being blue and green. But because of that congestion, some of you probably should just sit tight. But when we come back here and kind of make the breakout pull back long and come back and test it again, and it's a higher low, I like that one. It actually ticks back and goes higher one more time. But I don't know if I don't think I would trade that on the engulfing bar, and I don't think I would want to go long way up here. It's another one you might mark green. And you get a pretty good move up, and then that takes us into that next news item was at 12:30, so I'd be flat by 12:15, and you can see what craziness happened here. This really may not have been over till over here, but it's starting to slow down and look more normal right in here. So, but again, I don't see anything in here I'd really want to trade. So just kind of wait, and then you draw that off that trend line. It does confirm it here, but again, this is one that maybe you try to ride that back, but I think you're just throwing darts at a board here. Now you do have your trend channel with the break and new lows, but I'd kind of like a higher low or a failure. You may take that trade. You might argue that it's green, but I think it's a shot in the dark. You come up, you get a first entry, second entry, so there's a failure there. But when it drops down here, basically, let me draw this to make sure everybody's clear what we're trading here. There's a little range right there. And I'm trading this as a failed break lower with a nice signal bar. It's probably going to bounce and come back in, even if it's going to go lower. And this thing just takes off. And this is what those strong trends look like, what I was telling you about. Now, if you're not a skilled trader, don't trade these. But if you're skilled enough to recognize these, I pointed these out many times over the years, they don't look like it because they're just little small dojis. But notice how shallow the corrections are. Right here, we can't even hardly make anything more than a stem. No real pullbacks at all. And every time it hits that trend line with a green bar, it goes higher. And so you could just about trade any one of those bars that come back as a green bar to that trend line. Now, you better know what you're doing, but you could trade them. And I'm not going to mark them because you really need to know what you're doing. We go to we get a break and a couple of legs up to a new high, and then we correct one leg back. And there's a little trend coming back here. Right there. Notice you get a break. We try to go lower once, twice. I like this one because it bounces right off the key entry point. Nice signal bar, and it is a second entry long in what looks like a strong trend. It does confirm that trend line right up through there. Then all of a sudden you do get a break, but you get another second entry and also a triple test. 1, 2, 3. Nice signal bar. The one thing I didn't like about this was this next bar didn't break higher. That's sometimes a little concerning, but I still think this one's real close. I went ahead and marked it blue. But if you didn't take that one for that reason, there's nothing wrong with that thinking. So better safe than sorry. So if you're not sure, you read. But with being a triple test and a second entry long and such a nice signal bar, I think you got to take that one if you're experienced. And of course it takes off, and there's your next trend again. We usually don't draw the trend line on your retest, but you could draw it all the same. And once again, anytime you came back to this trend line with a good signal bar, it would have been a good trade. And then we get up here and you get a break, first entry. There's actually a second entry. Again, this is just like another little congestion area. And you get another little failed break lower that reverses. I like going long there. It's a little aggressive, so I marked it green and just leave it at that. There's actually another second entry here, but that's just too congested. And we've had a break and a couple of legs up now, so you got to be real careful. Don't enter in that kind of. When you see 1, 2, 3, 4 bars stacked up side by side, and a couple of them have real small bodies, that's congestion. Be real careful in that stuff because you see you could get stopped out there. I don't know if there's enough room. If you took that trade, well, it still would have worked, and that's why we like second entries, and that's why we go for 4 ticks, because they don't fail very often. They're powerful, but I'd skip that one. And then we come back and we fell out the low, and we go back sideways some more, then we go higher, and come to find out it's just a wider trend channel. And this is another one you might consider, but I'd probably wait. And there is a higher low here. If you traded it on the engulfing bar, then you got room to take that trade. If you waited till that closed, I wouldn't take it most likely right into that EMA, even though usually we don't worry too much about the EMA on sideways stuff. But you can see the last couple of times we tried to go higher, we just didn't go very high. So it's looking weak. So I'd want to see it bounce here again before I went long. I'd just sit tight here. And you can see, even though that would have worked, and it goes lower again, you get a higher low, and then turns back down again, and then finally we make a higher low here, and notice we get a first entry, and this broke lower, turns up and goes higher. I wouldn't trade that on the engulfing bar, but notice 1, 2, that's your third touch, so that confirms it. If we break above that, we're probably going higher, which we do. And then there's that strong trend again on your second leg, just kind of like the first one. So every time it comes back to that trend line with a good signal bar, maybe even that one, maybe even that one, there. These are still pretty positive. And that takes you into 230, but every time you come back with a good signal bar, it goes higher. Again, that's a very advanced trade. I'm sure some of you will try it tomorrow if you see it, and you'll probably lose because you don't know what you're doing, but I warned you. So it's for very advanced traders. So, and the odds of it working are really good. I mean, they can fail. I mean, I don't see a single one there that comes back with a good signal bar that doesn't work, but it could still fail. It's aggressive, but if you're going to be aggressive, this is the kind of trend to do it on. You'll see these trends to the downside just like it, and you can go short on them. So if you want to be aggressive, this is the kind of place you be aggressive, but don't do it if you're not a skilled chart reader. If you're new to this and learning, don't do it. Just don't do it. Stick to the basics. Learn them first and get better at this. So anyway, yeah, that's it for today. I'm not going to, I mean, this was a really big, strong rally today, and we'll see where it goes. It could be a fake out. We turn down off that trend line, or we could continue higher. I just don't know what to expect. I mean, I don't see any real proof the economy's getting any better. In fact, I think it's probably going to get worse. You know, they can finagle the numbers around all they want and call it whatever they say they want to call it, but I don't think the economy's getting any better just talking to people and seeing the price of gas and the price of everything, and so I just don't see any reason that this market should be rallying, other than a short covering rally. And that's probably what it is. I could be wrong. It's not enough information yet to really read the chart to know for sure. But if that trend line holds like it has held the last few times, we're going to be rocketing lower here pretty quickly. So we'll see. But anyway, I hope you had a good trading day. We'll wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow to wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next